Happy Earth Week, everyone! My name's Nancy Griffin. I work with Saugeen Conservation, and I'm here with Bruce County Museum to help you learn a little bit more about species at risk. Here in Grey and Bruce counties, we have lots of species at risk. This special Earth Week presentation on species at risk is brought to you by Saugeen Conservation. Species at risk means that many different species are at risk of becoming extinct, but there are different layers as you work your way through. An animal or plant that's been delisted is no longer on the list. Things for populations are looking much better. Special concern, we're starting to get worried about the populations. Threatened, a stage further than special concern. Endangered means there's a chance that they could become extirpated or extinct. Extirpated means no longer found living in its normal range, but still alive somewhere on Earth. And extinct, no longer found anywhere alive on Earth. Delisted are animal and plant species that are no longer a worry or concern for us on the species at risk. In other words, the populations are so good now, we're not worried about them becoming endangered or possibly extinct. Bald eagle used to be on the list because of a chemical that was once used called DDT. This chemical was a pesticide used out on the land. Whenever it rained, that chemical was washed into the water and into the fish that the bald eagle ate. Now, it didn't kill the bald eagles outright, but it made their eggs very brittle in the nest. The eggs would break long before the baby birds would hatch. Since 1972, Canada and the United States banned the use of this chemical, and since then the populations have been coming back. The populations of the black tern species of bird have also risen since we stopped using that chemical DDT. Peregrine falcon, also populations have come back up since 1972 when we stopped using that chemical. Milk snake have a completely different story. These creatures, growing as big around as your thumb, are often associated with old barns. We just weren't aware of how many of this species were around. They don't drink milk, but because they're found in barns, people used to think they were drinking milk. They're only eating the mice found in the barns. Lots of milk snake can still be found in the area. Now we're getting to things that are looking a little more dire. Special concern, looking at animals and plant species that could become threatened if we don't stop to help them. The short-eared owl is a species of owl that is active during the day. It prefers to live in grasslands and wetlands, but the problem is they're losing their habitat. The area where they would lay their eggs is now either pasture land or it's cropland. So they're losing their habitat. And now they're a species of special concern. Lake sturgeon are another one of special concern, a huge fish that grows up to 3 meters in length and can live over 150 years old. This species of fish was once used as a source of caviar. Its eggs were once eaten by people. There's also the problem that sometimes this fish gets caught in nets. And when it does, it dies in the net. Northern brook lamprey feed on microscopic animals and plants. They only grow to about 15 centimeters in length, and they need to be in very fast-moving, clean water. The problem is that fast-moving water is often a place where we have turbines to produce electricity, and these creatures are getting caught in the water turbines. Golden-winged warbler likes to live at the edge of forests and makes its nests in the shrubs. Unfortunately, the blue-winged warbler, a close relative, also likes that same habitat. And because it does, well, there's a competition for habitat. And they're starting to hybridize. They're crossbreeding. Golden-winged warbler is losing its ground. American hart's tongue fern is a special plant that can only grow in a special place. It needs to have the right amount of shade, rich black soil, and limestone rock in order to survive. Because of that, it's losing its habitat. Broad beach fern is another one that's losing its habitat, found only in special places in the whole of the province of Ontario. Dwarf lake iris, like the name suggests, is a small plant that grows along the Lake Huron shoreline. As you can see by the map, very few places that it can grow. Tuberous Indian plantain likes to grow in wetlands. We have lost 80% of our wetlands worldwide, so this plant is also losing its habitat. Hills pondweed can only grow in special conditions in special waterways. Hills pondweed can only be found in a few places in all of Ontario, so it's losing its habitat to development. The Louisiana water thrush likes to eat insects out of fast-moving water in our forests. The problem is that we're draining our land. There's not enough water flowing through the forests anymore, so this bird too is losing its habitat, a very important part of its habitat, of course, being the food that it eats. The eastern ribbon snake looks a lot like our garter snake. However, it only grows as big around as your baby finger. It grows longer than your arm in length, like a ribbon, and it's only found in wetlands. Because it lives in wetlands, it's losing its habitat. The white crest in front of the eye helps you to distinguish it from the garter snake. When you see the two species together, you can see the difference. The ribbon snake has a brown-colored head with a white crescent in front of its eye. This is an adult ribbon snake. The other is a garter snake, about a 2-week-old garter snake with a gray-colored head, no crescent in front of its eye. The northern map turtle has a pattern on its carapace, on its shell on its back, that makes it look like a map. That's how it gets its name. Northern map turtles live in wetlands, and we know that they're losing their habitat. They also have the problem that they're cute, and because they're cute, people will often try to pick them up and take them home as a pet. Snapping turtles are often seen at the side of the road laying their eggs. Because they lay their eggs so close to the road, they often get hit by cars and trucks. Another problem is that because they cannot pull their legs and head inside their shell, they snap, which scares people and helps them become afraid of them. One final problem with snapping turtles is the fact that they live in wetlands, and as we know, wetlands are disappearing all over the world. Now things are getting a bit worse. We're talking about threatened species. Barn swallow are the first of our threatened species we'll talk about today. These creatures have a problem that they make their nests on structures that humans build. And with that, we often nowadays keep our garage door closed. And because of that, the swallows can't get in to make their nests. So they're losing their habitat. They're also losing part of their habitat in that many species that rely upon flying insects to eat are not able to find enough food to eat. Bobolink are a species of bird that nest in grasslands. Many of our grasslands are used for producing hay. And nowadays, since we can use the big round bales of hay, we have a problem. We're out on the land taking the first crop of hay off 2 weeks earlier. We no longer have to wait for all the kids to get out of school to take the hay off. And because of that, that's still the time that the bobolinks are on their nests. Many farmers nowadays use a flushing bar, a bar with chains on it dangling to scare the birds away from their nests when the machinery first starts coming through. Eastern meadowlark also nest in those same grasslands, and they're also nesting at the same time that haying time is. Whippoorwills get their name from the sound that they make. They're nocturnal insectivores, which means they're active at night looking for insects. These creatures need large forested areas, which are getting too fragmented for them to survive. The cerulean warbler is a species of bird that nests in the treetops. It always comes back to nest in the same area and may not recognize that the forest has changed over time. So this bird is losing its habitat. Houghton's goldenrod is a species of plant that is found along the shoreline. Many people want a sand beach instead of having plants growing there. Lakeside daisy, like the name suggests, also grows along the shoreline, and people want sand beach, not plants that look like weeds. Hills thistle also grows along the shoreline, and with that, people in bare feet do not like thistles, so they often dig them up. Pitcher's thistle also grows along the shoreline, and because of that, well, people don't like them there, they dig them up and get rid of them. The Massasauga rattlesnake is Ontario's only remaining venomous snake. It is found on the Bruce Peninsula and along the Georgian Bay shorelines and a few other places within Ontario. It's a very big snake, being as big around as your arm, and it has a rattle on the end of its tail that it shakes before striking. Being venomous, it's been persecuted by many people and killed on sight out of fear. Often it gets run over on roads, and it's also losing its habitat where it's trying to survive. The least bittern is one of those birds that lives in wetlands. We have lost 80% of our wetlands worldwide, so this bird is losing its habitat. Queen snake are a species of snake that live in wetlands. They eat crayfish only after the crayfish has molted or lost its shell. Blanding's turtle, with its bright yellow chin, is often picked up as a pet from the wetland where it lives. The fact that they are often chosen as pets or taken from the wild means that they can no longer find a mate and have a family. Now we're getting into things that are looking far worse for the species. Endangered species. If we don't do anything about these species to help them, they will become extirpated or possibly extinct. The loggerhead shrike is the first one on this list. Loggerhead shrike are also known as the killer songbird. These birds kill and eat mice and smaller birds. The bird is about the size of a robin, but it lacks the talons that a hawk or an eagle has. It will often use barbed wire or plants that have thorns on them to impale their food on or hold it in place like we would with a fork as it eats the food. These birds are losing their habitat as many people are removing any thorn trees that might be on their properties. The rusty-patched bumblebee gets its name from the fact that it has a rusty red-colored patch on its back. These bees have a unique way of feeding. They cut a hole at the base of the flower to suck the nectar out of the flower. So scientists can use this to help identify where the bee is present. 99% of the bees have disappeared over the years. Most of that is attributed to disease, pesticides, and habitat fragmentation. The eastern prairie fringed orchid lives in open areas of fields. The problem is many of these fields are now used for pasture or for growing crops, so it's lost its habitat. The American badger feeds on groundhogs, and in Ontario we've had a problem with a blight on groundhogs, so this animal is losing its food source. Also, it has problems that traveling from one place to another to find groundhog mean it often is caught as roadkill. American ginseng is a plant that's often harvested for its roots. Once you dig a plant up by its roots, it will never come back again. Piping plovers make their nests in open areas on sandy beaches where there are pebbles present. The problem is that they're losing their habitat. There are also problems with the fact that sometimes their nest gets washed out, or predators come in, or sometimes the young will follow anything that comes nearby. A group of people called the plover lovers are there to help protect the birds on the shorelines. The king rail is another species that lives in wetlands. It too is losing its habitat. Hungerford's crawling water beetle is a species of beetle that lives in fresh, fast-moving water. They have only found 3 places in all of the province of Ontario, all of them located in Bruce County, where this creature lives. They don't know why it's here. It was left behind after the last glacial age, and they haven't found it anywhere else in the world. Another conundrum, one that they can't figure out, is a small minnow species called a red-side dace. The red side is what a male uses to help attract a female. These fish also like very fast-moving, clean water. Most of the species is found in the Toronto area, but there are some in Grey and Bruce counties as well. So now we're into extirpated. Still found living somewhere on Earth, but not within its normal range, not where it originally was found. This one may shock you. Are you surprised? Just about everyone has seen wild turkey out in the woods, on the fields, and just about everywhere that these wild turkey can find food. Back before the 1980s, however, we did not have wild turkey here in Ontario. For over 100 years, they were gone out of Ontario. We were able to trade with the United States, who still had wild turkey, some of our moose and otter in exchange for their wild turkey, and reintroduce them here into Ontario. They were once extirpated out of Ontario. They're now able to find enough habitat, and now with proper hunting laws, we're able to monitor the populations and ensure that they'll be here for future generations. Often when we think about an extinct animal, we think about the dinosaurs, or perhaps something exotic like the dodo. But we have an animal that was here for many, many, many years that is now extinct. The very last one of these disappeared just shortly over 100 years ago and is no longer found anywhere on Earth alive. These creatures were in the billions. The skies would turn black as a flock of thousands flew over at a time. The animal that is extinct, no longer found anywhere on Earth alive anymore because of people. It's the passenger pigeon. There were once so many birds that it would take over an hour for just one flock of these birds to fly over. People would shoot up in the air or throw nets in the air to capture them, sometimes piling up the bodies of dead birds to have competitions to see who could get more. People never thought we would run out of the passenger pigeon, but in September 1914, the very last passenger pigeon on Earth alive died in a zoo in Cincinnati. No longer found anywhere on Earth anymore alive because of people who just didn't pay attention. Why? Why are so many different species of animals and plants on the species at risk list? The first reason, well, is habitat destruction. Food, water, shelter, and space are all needed in a suitable arrangement to make a good habitat for our animals and plants. Without that, they just cannot survive. Chemical pollution, whether it's DDT or other chemicals introduced into the system, means that many animals and plants cannot survive. Introduced species and invasive species can wreak havoc when they take over from our native species that live here. Collecting and harvesting. Taking things from the wild means that they cannot reproduce and grow as a population. Fear and ignorance. People being afraid of something doesn't give them the right to just kill it. So the more we know, the more prepared we are to help these animals and plants survive. And then there are unknown causes why some of these species are on the list. We need to take more time to study them. So what can we do? We can help animals survive by helping look after habitat, ensure that there is enough habitat for them, food, shelter, water, and space, plant a tree, put up a birdhouse, maybe start feeding the birds, a bird bath, a pond, somewhere where they can find water. Ensure that these animals and plants have enough habitat to survive, and maybe spread the word. Help others know what you've learned here today. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Have a happy Earth Week. I hope you've enjoyed learning about species at risk here in Grey and Bruce counties. Happy Earth Week, everyone!